Welcome into the New Orleans Saints podcast. You'll hear from players, coaches, broadcasters, and writers that cover the NFL on a daily basis. The New Orleans Saints podcast starts right now. Here's your host, Aaron Summers.
Welcome into the New Orleans Saints podcast. I'm Erin Summers. It's a fun week as we are in Costa Mesa with the Chargers for joint practices, all ahead of their preseason game on Sunday. It'll be the 11th time that these two teams have met in a preseason game, and between the weather, getting to see another opponent on the other side of the field, these joint practices are usually a little more lively. At the first of two joint practices between the Chargers and the Saints, there were two former Saints running backs on hand, Deuce McAllister and Aaron Stecker. I was able to catch up with both, get their thoughts about the practices, what they're up to now, and some insight into the season. Stecker played for the Saints from 2004 to 2008 in the middle of his 10-year professional career. He now resides in California, making the short trip to Costa Mesa for Thursday's practice. Aaron, thanks for joining us on the New Orleans Saints podcast. It's great to have former Saints on the pod talking about current team. How excited are you to be out here to see the team here in your territory?
Man, it's great. It's like anytime I get to see a Saints, that's close to my heart. I spent 5 years there. My son was born there. That's his team. He loves the Saints. So anytime we get a chance to come out and see, we consider our hometown team, it feels good.
Any players, position groups you're watching out here at practice?
I think just a little bit. Since I was a running back, you kind of gravitate more to running back. So I got an opportunity to go out there and watch them a little bit. But I just like to see the flow of the offense. Really like to see Carr out there and throwing the ball out in the flats and everything. So it looks good. Do
you remember any of these joint practices when you played?
Just a few. Yeah. I think towards the end of my career we had a few. It's always fun hitting other people because a lot of times you see the same faces, but then when you get a chance to go bang on somebody else, you kind of get your frustration out on those guys. So it was always fun when we had the opportunity to go. Usually there were some fights that went on, so and sometimes they were planned. We just try to get out of practice, but but it's great getting out there with other guys.
Yeah, they don't even let you out of practice. Now they just kick the players out of practice.
That's right.
When you see the Saints offense, you mentioned Derek Carr. You've seen the Saints offense at some of its better days. Do you feel like this offense can get back to those days?
I do. I think, a lot of it comes down to injuries. And, when you start missing guys, receivers. I know Mike Thomas has been out for a while. James Winston last year got hurt early. And sometimes it just messes up with the flow and everything. So as long as, the guys stay healthy and they can start building that chemistry, I think the sky's the limit for these guys.
When you're evaluating running backs, what are you looking for?
I think it's just everything. You got to be, at this day and age, you got to be able to catch the ball. You got to be able to block. That's the number one thing. You got to protect your quarterback because that's the high value position that's out there. And also just be tough nosed. You got to put your foot in the ground and get those tough yards when it's called upon, and also be a little bit elusive. If you get that one-on-one guy coming, like the safety come down, you got to be able to make him miss because you can't block everybody. So the special guys have a chance to know how to, make guys miss. Okay,
proud papa moment here. How's it feel to be the next most famous person in the house now?
It's great. It's also, and when it first happened, they would be like, you're Skylar's dad, and which was weird at first, but I had my time to shine. 11. Great years in the NFL, and I'm just a proud papa, just seeing my kids living their dream, working hard, and hopefully, they become successful like I was in the career that they choose.
When you see that success, how does it kind of shape, I guess parenthood and those kinds of things? Because you have to be a little bit careful when your kids are just out there and they're, gaining fame and those kinds of things.
You do, but I think just being around, being a dad and just showing how you carry yourself and just giving little tips, even. It doesn't matter if it's the music industry, music industry, or if my son, he wants to be an NFL player one day. You just teach them the things that you learn, or just little things to be aware of. So, how to carry themselves, and develop those type of skills, so they can. It all comes down to hard work. Nothing comes easy. If it was easy, everybody would do it. I tell them. And then there's a lot of times people quit because they feel like it's too hard, and then people that are successful, they don't take no for an answer. They just keep it going.
Are you a hard coach to both?
I think I'm a little sweeter to my daughter. I think I'm a little softy. But as for my son, he would probably say I'm a hard coach.
What position does he want to get into?
So he plays a slot receiver. He was smart getting out of the running back situation, knowing that running back is a dying breed in this day and age. Especially with all the 7-on-7 stuff that goes on with the young kids and stuff. It's kind of like everybody wants to be receiver, and it's slimming out at the running back position.
Is that a little disappointing to you? Because you played running back, and now you see the position like being undervalued, and guys are just kind of taking it for granted that we can find a running back.
Yeah, it is. It's disheartening, but I understand also. If you're you're running the team, if you go by statistics, generally from all the pounding they take. Because if you look at a running back, especially like when I was playing, from 9 years old on, you're taking carry after carry. There was games I had like in college where I had like 30-something plus carries, and so then when you're in youth football, a lot of times you don't have quarterbacks who can throw the ball, so you're like handing it off, and so you're taking it. So that adds up, and so by the time these running backs get in the league, they've had miles on, and then by the time 3-4 comes around, statistics say, they kind of go downhill, and so it's unfortunate, and hopefully that will change now with the new style of more of like passing and less running. So maybe that'll help the guys later on, but it is because they do a lot. Because if you have a great running back, and they can catch the ball and they can run it, like teams are still going to use it, and it just feels it's sad because then they use you, and then all of a sudden, like when you want to get paid, and then it's usually like by the time your rookie deal is over, which is probably like 4 or 5 years, like the odds say you're not going to be as good as you were before. So just the way the business is right now.
So now, what is Aaron Stecker doing nowadays? I heard you mention something about a football game tomorrow. But,
yes.
Unfortunately, we see you and you're not playing anymore because the Saints could use you.
No more playing. So I always said if I was going to coach, I would coach at the high school level. So I've been fortunate. I got hired in January to coach at Corona Del Mar High School. It's the local high school around here. So I actually coach the running backs, and I'm the special teams coordinator there. So it's been a lot of fun. It's different dealing with these teenage kids, trying to get them to listen and the stuff I'm trying to teach them. But it's coming along, and so I'm excited to see. Our first game's tomorrow, so I'm excited to see how we do.
What's the outlook for the team this year?
We're really young. We only have like 10 to 12 returning seniors, a bunch of juniors, and we're playing about 4 or 5 sophomores, which is unusual for a varsity squad. But I think we'll still be good. We have real talented players at key positions. So it'll be an interesting year. I'm optimistic about our chances this year.
All right, before we let you go, favorite moment as a Saint?
Favorite moment would have to be when we came back after Katrina in the Dome against Atlanta. Because when I was with Tampa Bay, I played in the Super Bowl, and it was loud. But being there that night when everybody was there, I just remember the day after, my ears were still ringing, and then just that block punt with Gleason, and it was like a storybook thing, just what everyone had to go through that year, with the destruction that went down, in New Orleans, and people being displaced, and the year we had to go to San Antonio and then come back to the Dome, knowing what happened in that Dome also, and then just the city come together. It was just it just felt like as a city we were just one big family, and then for that to happen was amazing. It's that's better than the Super Bowl feeling. That's by far the highlight of my career in New Orleans.
Yeah, we're looking forward to getting back in the Superdome pretty soon.
Yes.
See how the fans are this year. I'm sure they'll be pretty loud. Looking forward to this season. Thank you so much for joining us. Enjoy the rest of practice.
Well, thank you very much. It was good talking to you guys.
McAllister really needs no introduction. He's on hand as part of the radio broadcast for Sunday's game, where he'll provide analysis alongside Mike Haas. Deuce, thanks for joining us on the New Orleans Saints podcast. You're here in LA area, taking in the joint practices with the Chargers. What did you see from the Saints on the first day here?
Well, the first thing, I have to commend the weather. You can't be in New Orleans in 100+ degree weather and then come out here and it's 72 degrees, I think it was at one point. So, first and foremost, that's kudos for that. The weatherman came through, so thank you. But overall, I thought it was competitive practice. I thought that they really got after it, both sides of the ball. A little chippy in certain situations, and particularly in special teams. Thought those were competitive reps for a lot of different guys that are trying to make the teams. But when you look at it offensively, we had an interception during a team drill. I think Derek had a little pressure, ball sailed on him. And then defensively, though, we were able to create a fumble. Nefi Sewell came with a big hit against Austin Eckler, and Marshawn was able to scoop it up. That would have been a scoop and score. So, anytime that your defense is, negative obviously for the Saints, but your defense got one back for you, I think that's good work. And then when you look at it, you had a lot of moving certain situations. And so whether it was third down, you moved the ball, you had some 2-minute work, different things like that. It's always tough to see everything because both units are going on separate fields at the same time. So the focus for me today was more so the skill and not necessarily the offensive line, and that's what I'll focus on tomorrow, offensive line, defensive line play. But, I thought it was overall pretty good. There were some pre-snap penalties on both sides of football, whether it was movement or offsides. I think a couple times they were lining up offsides. Offensively for us, we probably had some pre-snap movement stuff that you got to get cleaned up, but pretty good work.
You've played in some of these joint practices. How important is this time and these reps that these players are getting?
Important is a good word. I don't know if that's what it's called. It's a change-up. So every practice is going to be important, but it's a change-up when you're going against a different player. Because you've been going against your own teammate for so long. Now you get to go against a different defense. Now you get to go against maybe a guy that you won't see in the game. And so for a lot of guys, I know the games are always important, particularly a preseason game from an evaluation period, but you will very rarely get to script 10 third down plays, and that's exactly what they get to do. And so from an evaluation standpoint, I get to see so much more, whether it's the one-on-ones or whether it's, one-on-one blocking, certain things that the coaches can control here more so than they can, and it's on film. And so I think that you always want to put your best foot forward, but from a coaching standpoint, you get to control so much more so in a game.
So maybe valuable would be the better word than important.
It's very, very valuable from that instance and that stance because, it's all on film. And not that the game isn't on film, but, for you to have, let's just say that they had 20 total third down plays, you're not going to get that in a game. And then where you can script it exactly the down and distance that you want, the distance that you want. I want 3rd and 6. I want 4 of those. I want 3 3rd and 2s. And every quarterback gets that rep. That's invaluable.
For the players that are fighting to make this team, how do you weigh what they're doing here in practice, the joint practices, and then in games?
Well, I think it definitely weighs. The game is obviously the ultimate decider. Because the lights are on and you have to be able to perform there. But to even get that opportunity, you have to show that you can do it in practice. So obviously the game is the most important. But you have to put yourself in a position to understand that, 1, I know what I'm doing. 2, I can go out there and do it in a game. If you can't do that in practice, then it's hard for me to trust that you can do it in a game.
Overall, what have you noticed about this team that may be different from last year? Obviously, you can start with the addition of quarterback Derek Carr, but just kind of the feeling that you've been getting from the team this training camp.
Yeah, obviously, you talk about Derek, and I think everybody knows that, but I think, just communication as well on the back end defensively has been really good, really smooth. I know that there was some, and you have to understand guys are in different or new positions when you had communication issues during the game. But so for the most part, they've been really good with communication on the back end. And then when you talk about offensive side of the football, question becomes, and you see it a little, but can you continue to add depth on that offensive line? Can you have some of those younger guys continue to take strides and step up? Because that's, to be honest, that's where you're going to have the make or break for your season. Because if you can open up run lanes and you can protect your quarterback, you've got all the skill positions that you need to be successful.
All right, let's talk about these running backs here. How different is what they do than what you used to do? They're really getting used in the pass game a lot.
Yeah, I had, one year where I almost had 70 catches. So, you have to pride yourself on being a 3-down back. You have to pride yourself on a guy that can not only protect, obviously running on first and second down is always important, but if you can have the ability to catch the football out of the backfield or line up in the slot or go in motion and create mismatches, that's what you want. And so to be used in that manner is always good. And so for every back, I'll tell them, hey, look, go work routes with the receivers. Go out and get on the jug. Go catch the football, because you want to force that OC to have to say, hey, look, I can't take him out. I'm going to play him on third down. And so that's what these guys have been doing. And so anytime that the OC feels like he can create a mismatch and you're getting the ball on third down, then you like it.
Small sample size, but what have you liked from Kendre Miller?
Well, one, you like how he finishes his runs. He's a physical back. For him to continue to be able to do that and understand how to use his body, that's one of the things that he's going to have to continue to work on and learn. The other thing is, it's just small. But you have to take care of the body. He's been nagged up. He's been bruised. The knee has given him some issues. This is really only his first work since he's been in the NFL. He didn't get any work during the summer. He didn't get any work OTAs. So for him, he's still learning. And then the other part of it is you have to understand, it's one thing to be able to see the paperwork, see the play. It's another to see it on video, but it's totally different to go out there and actually run the play. And so this is his first time getting to do some of that. So it's going to take a little time for him, but he's plenty of talented. You see some of the cuts that he makes. You see some of the suddenness or the subtleness, how he sets up some of his run. He has all of the talent to be able to do it. It's just, him trusting what he's seeing and him understanding what he's seeing to where he's going to unlock it.
I appreciate the insight. I'm sure we'll catch up with you again, a couple weeks, sometime this season. Always a good time to have you on.
I surely appreciate it. Thank you.
We'll be back at it again tomorrow from Costa Mesa. I'll be alongside John DeShazier, Todd Graffinini. We'll track down anyone else who's on hand watching practice and catch up with them. So stay tuned for another episode of the New Orleans Saints podcast on Friday.
Thanks for listening to the New Orleans Saints podcast. Join us 3 times per week on NewOrleansSaints.com, the Saints mobile app, or you can download the podcast on iTunes. We'll see you next time, right here on the New Orleans Saints podcast.